Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision, the FinTech Fuse. This is Theo, your host for the episode, along with my partner in crime, Stephanie Foster. Joining us on the show today is Kristen Castell, Managing Director of FinTech CAFE, amongst many, many other things that she is working on. Welcome to the show, Kristen. I swear you have power to clone yourself, literally. I don't know how you do that.
It's great to be here, Theo and Stephanie. So excited to speak with you, especially, with what you've written about and what we talked about last time in terms of technology and age tech and the metaverse and all of it. I know we're talking mostly about fintech and inclusion and other things today, but I'm so excited to be here and continue our conversation.
Absolutely. So, first off, I do have this question I really want to ask you because for someone with your background, super extensive background, JPM, BlackRock, you've done a lot in the wealth space, big firms, and then fintech startup, and then a nonprofit. All very interesting aspects, all have to do with money, but different parts of money and different roles that it plays in the society with very, very, very different demographics in the walks of life. Curious to hear what are some of your most memorable experience, if you will, and how do you get from there to here?
Yes, yeah, I've had an incredible journey in financial services as a fintech entrepreneur and now creating a nonprofit organization and accelerator program for financial innovation to improve the financial wellness of people. And the best part for me is now all the organizations I'm part of or I'm advising are all aligned with my why and what I believe in. So really having a social impact, really aligned with financial inclusion and also building communities for the future. As you mentioned, yeah, I spent the first part of my career at some of the largest financial institutions. So I was at JP Morgan twice. I was at BlackRock for over 10 years. Back then, years ago, when I got out of school as a finance major, there weren't all the options that we have today in terms of, the accessibility of technology and building companies. So it's like, oh, just get a good job at a bank. And I did that, in order to build my career. And I was very fortunate. What I did mostly at these financial institutions was investment product development. And why I love that is I really got to work with all of the different parts of the bank and the different type people and specialties. So, working on the sales and marketing side, understanding what are we creating for our customers? What do they need? Let's say they need to save money for retirement, um, and and understanding that from that side, bringing that together with what we can manufacture. So, working with, in this case, the portfolio managers, the investment managers, bringing that together to design a product and then working with technology, operations, legal, compliance to design and build that product and then really put that out in market and position that. And so really getting to work on that end to end with all of those different parts of the bank and all those different people was something I loved. And so I realized I really loved creating products. And yeah, with those financial institutions, those are products for mainly people that have wealth or are trying to save their money or looking for investment products and funds. I learned about while I was in banking, I learned about something called, what I'll call impact investing. I mean, there's large umbrella on that, but really the concept of how do we invest in companies that are doing better by people and also have more efficient operations that are doing better for the world. And, love the concept. And there's really an investment thesis there about understanding companies function and creating long-term value, not just for profits, although those are important, but also what they're doing for people in society and how they're really interacting with the world and what that means for their business and their operations. And so back then, 10 years ago, that was, I got a lot of pushback for that. So there were some people that believed in it, but many, especially in large finance, thought it was more like a charity or why would we do this or no one's going to care, et cetera. So it was a little bit of a side project for me for a while until I ended up leaving the large corporations and banking around the time of the pandemic to be a fintech entrepreneur and be part of helping to build a fintech company called Seeds, which is a values aligned investing platform. And what we did was build a technology and an experience for financial advisors to understand their clients better, not just their financial goals, but also what was important in their lives. And so that was an incredible opportunity to really end to end be out in the world creating something I really believed in that space. and then also learning just all the aspects of creating a company, which is similar to creating a product and the product development I talked about, but also on a larger scale and also out in the world. So caught the bug for, entrepreneurship and, loved working with early stage founders, entrepreneurs, saw what was going on in, the fintech space, the early stage startup space. More recently, I am part of creating a nonprofit org, and we have a flagship fintech accelerator program that builds these technologies, helps these founders and entrepreneurs build their fintech products, and specifically for financial health and wellness of underserved communities. And so, I've worked with a bunch of organizations and nonprofits, and particularly microfinance and others, where we really can afford people opportunities to build their financial livelihoods and securities. And, working, like I said, working from building products for wealthy people to also working on products for where, you know, people every day can maybe contribute microloans to people around the world that can then use that to build their own small income generating businesses as micro entrepreneurs. It's really been incredible. And so what I love is creating the products, and that's the most, meaningful for me, connecting to not just the products, but what are the experiences in people's lives and what makes it meaningful for them. So how is financial products are just tools, right? To for people to use to create value in their lives. How do they create value for their families and education and their healthcare and all of it? And thinking about it in that way, and then working backwards to what the products are. So that's been incredible just to see, how money flows at large organizations as well as small technology organizations and nonprofit businesses. But, the learning has been amazing. And I think, now through technologies, it's more accessible than ever. People can really create their own opportunities. So, entrepreneurs, micro entrepreneurs, or even entrepreneurs in these companies that can really change the world for the future. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great, Kristen. Thank you for sharing more insight into your career journey. And I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you. I'm realizing that you and I have a lot way more in common than I anticipated, because I similarly also did a move into startup during the pandemic as well, like that eye-catching moment, and found out earlier today that we both have daughters, are on the same age, and we're both running accelerator programs. So that's really cool. Uh,
Yeah, no, exactly. And it was just so incredible, right? Like being an entrepreneur, it just afforded me so much more time with my daughter and to integrate something I love into my life. And you're just bringing my life and my work and like what I'm creating, and it's incredible for our daughters and children to see us doing that.
Most certainly, I agree. And I do have to congratulate you again on your new role as managing director at CAFE, the Center for Accelerating Financial Equity based in Delaware. And, as you
Thank
know,
you.
as an immigrant, that topic of financial equity is near and dear to my heart, having lived it as someone who moved to this country, not having the knowledge of how the financial system works, and landing certain roles and learning about 401ks and everything else. So what I would love to hear is if you could share with us more about what is CAFE, what is the mission, what are you hoping to accomplish with the accelerator program and all the other programming that are in the pipeline for you.
Yeah, and that resonates with me so much. I'm first generation from Croatia. My family came over on the boat years and years ago, but as any immigrant, coming to this country, and even now, it's so hard when my family came over here not speaking English and working in factories and other jobs, and not, I'm sure they had to learn about, bank accounts and what is a system and how do you save money, and what's the education and all of that. And so it is important to have support systems and communities and products really to help in that journey. But thank you. I'm, very, very excited. It's really, one of my dream opportunity, and an awesome kind of next step in my journey to be managing director for CAFE. CAFE is the Center for Accelerating Financial Equity, and we power fintechs and fintech innovation to advance financial health and wellness for underserved communities. So that includes LMI, which is low to moderate income, as well as other underserved communities, people that have been unbanked or underbanked. And, we believe that financial wellness is really tied to people's physical, mental, and overall health. And so by improving people's financial security, you can really significantly improve people's lives. and that, goes into their healthcare and food security and education and housing. And so, with Cafe, that's our mission, really doing that through building, supporting, empowering financial technologies. And we have a flagship FinTech Accelerator program where twice a year we work with 5 to 10 early to growth stage financial technology or FinTech companies that are growing. And we really help them with connections, coaching, community in order to grow their company. So these are companies with a product in market already. They've already built this technology. Those technologies are in some way advancing that mission, really advancing financial wellness for these communities. And we are helping them gain scale. So potentially have organizational partnerships to gain more customers, product pilots, access to funding, business building through coaching, different types of mentors, and it's just really exciting. And so Cafe will, has will have other services and programs, but that's the one I wanted to highlight. We have our next cohort starting early next year for these companies. And Cafe, what's exciting about Cafe, like you said, Cafe is born out of a new Center for Excellence that was built in Newark, Delaware, on the University of Delaware campus. So University of Delaware, top tier research institution, incredible, new technologies, students, talents going on there in terms of building AI, cybersecurity, small business, et cetera. And so there's a new FinTech Innovation Hub, which is a physical building location on that campus. And what that does is bring together university resources and people with private and public. So different banks, Discover Financial's involved. There's the Small Business Development organization there. We got a loan from the Small Business Association, SBA, to start this. So what are the governmental programs and organizations, private banking, private and then early stage companies. So we'll have an incubator on the ground there. And then Cafe itself is a global national program because our services are hybrid virtual. So we can work with companies not just in Delaware, but really broadly and nationally, and then eventually globally. And so really excited to come in and help build out Cafe as part of the FinTech Innovation Hub. And, I'm in New York City, but, travel a lot. And I think in the new economy, especially after the pandemic, we saw how, especially with these new technologies, we can work from anywhere. And so, there's been main kind of finance hubs, and Delaware has been one of them. As we know, many of the banks are in Delaware. So it makes sense for the location, but really having this be a really global program is important to us.
I love the mission and I love the location actually that you guys chose because it's not one of those that, oh, it's again yet, something that we know the usual suspects. So it is super cool. I look forward to hearing more about the program as you get closer. So I want to shift focus just a tad bit. You're also advisor for city of Tolosa. That was interesting because originally when we first started the conversation, you were talking about things that you were passionate about, connecting pieces together and looking at things that will impact people. A future city, something that will impact people in a different way, a new way, perhaps a new way of living and a new way of shared equity, if you will. I did spot a word which was really interesting. I never saw that before. Equitism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about what is equitism and what exactly is Tolosa?
Yeah, so Tolosa is a really exciting project and organization part of. I actually heard about it on a podcast a few years ago, and after I heard about it, I reached out through my network, and I'm like, how do I get involved? Which is how I really get involved in most things I'm passionate about or a part of, right? Just asking and saying, hey, how can I help? How can I be part of it? So yeah, so when I heard about the future city Tolosa, what it is not just a city, but it's a new model of how our existing cities and our new cities can really be built in a new way that's better for all of us, better for people. And it was remarkable because it's really a way to change the world. And the idea here is it's really created and co-created with people first. So it's open, fair, and inclusive for everybody. And the word equitism, which Tolosa is based on, is a model where the city foundation owns the land, and as the land value rises, that's what pays for the social services, the best education, the best healthcare, and other social services for the people. And so it's still a capitalist city and a lot of business and enterprise, but also really focusing on community and people first. And so right now we have it's not a physical city yet. It's a virtual community, that a global community that I'm helping to build, and we're doing a lot of work looking at best practices from different cities now on how actually building community, putting out thought pieces, doing some webinars, and bringing in people for focus groups, like how from all really from all over, how can we all build in different areas? How can we build this together? What would a new education system look like? What would a new healthcare system look like? So it's really exciting. And the idea again is to really build a model based on, the inclusion and the equitism, and one that could work for all of us. And there's many new cities around the world. If you look them up, there's, Saudi Arabia and other places, they're building these new cities. And many of them are based on the technology first. Like, oh, cool, like come live here because we're going to have the coolest flying cars and tech and all of it. Pelosa will have all that too, of course, in the future. But it's really based on like, okay, let's think about community relations and the people first, and how can we make people's lives better? And then of course that's going to be powered with the technology. So yeah, so that's what's exciting about it.
That's really cool. Like, I can't imagine having advisor to a city on my resume. Like, you're such a rock star, Kristen. I love that. That's not a goal I
Thank
thought I
you.
had, but now I feel like
Thank you. Come get involved in Tolosa.
Steph, that's your new goal for 2025,
I know.
26, 29. Just keep adding it up. I mean, but it is interesting though to think about it, because we know that our system, current system, pick one, healthcare, financial services, education, what have you,
Mhm.
need change. There are different ways of going about changing it. There are people that run for public office, that try to change it from within. And then there are people that say, maybe we can start from scratch and build out what we need to be. And then it's, you are the first person though that I know that's doing something on the opposite side of it. It's actually really, really cool. It is cool. All right, Steph, you know
Thank
what?
you.
It's on my bucket list too, one of these days. Yes. We admire
Please,
you.
love to have you. I mean, it's it's incredible what we can do together, and that's the whole point, right? It's not about just one person or one business. It's like coming together in a community to build something using kind of new innovation. So
So Kristen, in addition to building financial products, running programs, being a mom, advising a city, you also make time to support causes that you care about. And I know one of them is the Micro Dreams Foundation. You volunteer with them for several years. You also serve on the board, which I think is really cool. Would love to get your insights on, when it comes to the topic of financial inclusion and financial inequality, particularly for women, what more should we be doing as a collective? Because progress seems to be a bit elusive at times, right? It's like we take two steps forward and take like a step
mhm.
back. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, such an important topic. And yeah, micro dreams is how I first got involved in financial inclusion. This was, I guess, 13 years ago. Also, I just went to a talk, heard the founder speak about it. And I never heard about microfinance before. Microfinance being giving small loans and business opportunities to these micro entrepreneurs, these women around the world that are poor and maybe don't have ways to get into the economy kind of in there where they're living. And this gives them opportunities to build their own businesses. And I love the concept. It's basically like teaching a man, or a woman in this case, how to fish, right? So anyway, so when I got involved in Micro Dreams, and they work with South Pacific Business Development, which works on the ground in a lot of the South Pacific islands, so like Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, etc., and have been really building an incredible system and organization for decades now. That's really worked. You know, it's also a concept that's worked around the world, and really has helped women and women entrepreneurs. And it's interesting, like when you're giving loans to these women, the default rates are so low. Like most of the women pay it off. Like the data shows, it's so much better than the credit and the actual default rates from like regular credit cards or other types of credit with people that have great credit scores. And these people, are unbanked and don't have any credit scores and have shown like through the microfinance system and process to really it's made a difference in these communities and economies. So yeah, so that's been incredible to be part of. I'm also part of Share Change, which is a fintech app for that purpose, basically letting all of us on our phones not donate, but make loans to these entrepreneurs around the world, and then also providing my own financial wellness. I can save on the app, etc. But your question, Stephanie, is so important because you hear now, even in developed societies here, like all over the news, all these organizations and venture capital firms, we really want to invest in women. How do we invest in more women? I mean, the numbers are just atrocious in terms of the women getting funding, and especially for Black women or for minorities getting funding for their businesses. I mean, it's like less than 1%, right, of startups that are founded by like an underrepresented founder get funding. And so we're all talking about it, but I don't see the money, right? I don't see the data changing. And I think the first thing I would say is, you know, basically elevating and amplifying and making this an important issue, not just for women, but for men. And so how do we, I really believe in something called the shine theory, which I'm sure you've heard of, where it's like, lifting women up. So there's, in finance, it's not just the one spot that we're all fighting for, but like we can all do really great together. And there has been a lot of progress, I think, in the financial industry, although women still aren't paid as much as men and don't still the percentages aren't equal. There has been a lot of progress that I have seen in large financial firms and women kind of making strides. And some of the organization, parts of the organization I've been part of, like the women's networks, we've done a lot of programming on things like the shine theory and like other professional personal development. But I think it's getting everyone and getting men into there and making it important for them. I think it's more of an education because unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people aren't going to do it because it's a charity or it's nice to have, or more morality, like I'm going to do this because it's moral thing. But they're going to also do it because it makes business sense. Because diverse people with diverse experiences, different types of entrepreneurs that know different types of markets and can come up with different ideas, can add more value, can create better innovations and new innovations in the world. And when we see the actual like fruit of that, when we see like these company, we can invest in these things and these founders and these companies that are actually doing that, and we start seeing more of those numbers, I think then, all of the traditional boys club of investing or others will be knocking at the door to start investing. Now that's just like a dream, but there's so much more. So I think it needs to be just like back in the day when I was in banking and I told you like the impact investing, like no one cared. And now a lot of the banks are
Mhm.
incorporating things like that. It's those large organizations that have the money have to make this a priority and not just like a side thing that like we have a program to invest in this, but it has to be throughout the DNA of who are the investors, bringing in diverse portfolio managers, investors, and who are the investments, and then giving opportunities to who's creating the new technologies, like the fintech entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. And so, like I said, there's been a start, and there's a lot in the news about it. But yeah, I think it's getting the awareness, but then actually also having all of the capital and the people that make decisions really take this on as something important.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to ask you both the same question too, because we all need to come together on this issue.
I don't think it's lack of data that shows that it works. And that's been my struggle, right? Every year we keep seeing reams and reams of data. Have you had that more diversity in X, you would have achieved X more GDP. It would have been, da 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 da. And yet again and again and again, we come back disappointed. We went through the pandemic. We thought that was going to level the playing field because people are not traveling. We're all together behind the screen, but yet it proved to be worse because in times of uncertainty, people go back to the people that they know, that they resonate with, that look like them, that went to the same school with them. I don't have a magic answer, Steph. I think it depends on which day I am. I can be like, I think my husband called me the angry feminist or aggravated feminist. Or some of the
What?
days I'm like, I just get to the point where because it's dumbfounding, isn't it? But you touched a point. You said, who are the investors? Who? And I think that is the problem. Who are the people with the money? Who are the people at the table that can make decisions? Who are the ones that can say, yes, this is what we're doing. No, this is not what we're doing. Look at a recent fiasco with a certain AI company and look at how they ended up with the board. The two women got kicked out. Now they're all male board. If we are to say that the technology, such important emerging technology, is our future, the future is not all male. And that's the problem, right? It's who has the power. Sadly, I think it's probably going to take 100 years to get there. That's just my personal, very pessimistic, probably
Yeah.
realistic point of view.
Well, you made a great point. I mean, if we're, we can talk about the new trends in technology and women and all types of diversity and all types of people need to be part of building that, right? That's like if we agree that's like the new future. And to your point, we need more women on boards and more people building and more women and others building the technologies.
That's a simple fact, right? That's the gripe I always have with a lot of the generative AI tools nowadays. We say that, these tools are going to help us do things more efficiently, do things better. But if you look at who created those tools and who they serve, most of them are based on Western languages. I'm sorry, there's like 1 billion plus people in the global South that
Hmm.
don't use that language in their day to day. So are we inherently, by creating these tools and introducing them to our workplace, driving a bigger wedge of inequality amongst our societies? And how do we go about fixing it? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But all I see is like, we need to do better. We need to do different. So I am glad you are doing what you're doing, Kristen, and we need more of you. That's my
Thank you. And we need more
roundabout
of
way.
you too. And
Oh,
Stephanie.
so,
Most
so
definitely more voices at the table. I don't know that there's a short term solution to solving any of this. Like you said, Theo, it's gonna take 100+ years. But I'll tell you what does give me hope, though.
the girls,
Our daughters give me hope.
yeah,
Hmm.
fearless.
Most definitely. So I can see future generations most certainly leveraging the effort that those before us have already put forward, all the effort that between the three of us and our networks are putting in to get more voices at the table, more women, more diverse faces in product management, on boards, and entrepreneurship to help solve a lot of this. But it goes back to what you said, Kristen: awareness, education, and taking action, not just speaking it, but actually doing it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a hard job that we have, right? To make sure that some structural inequalities aren't going to bias our children, right? And it's hard because, you see when you're with my daughter, like she was born, with no biases, with all kind, like anything's possible, right? And I keep that imagination alive for her. And we do talk about things like, I'm explaining crypto to her. And actually it resonates and makes more sense for kids, like when you start explaining it in simple language. But yeah, having them and we're also, for me, I'm fortunate to live in a location too where she sees there's a lot of things going on right in New York where it's open and there's a lot of diversity and other things. But for people around the world or around the country that don't see that, like, yeah, how do we foster this inclusivity in the new generation and get more of everyone at the table and everyone wanting that because they see how it benefits the future.
Absolutely. We need a mind melting exercise. Here you go. That's what we need. All right. Before we let you go, I wanted to pick your brain. What are some of the big trends that you are most excited for as we kick off this new year? You can, what you're most excited for, what you wish would happen more. It's up to you.
Oh, so much. We talk all day about this. So everyone's talking about AI, right? And I think there's a lot of applications for it in business and our lives and I've even started playing with it a little bit. So all of that, sure, that's going to be important. I think it's a little bit overhyped right now, especially with investors. I'm surprised that no one wants to talk about Web3 anymore. Like I think there's a lot of applications still for DeFi apps, for blockchain, for different aspects of the metaverse, and especially for emerging economies, right? Especially for economies that don't have a stable currency and financial system. So, how do we there's no path yet into how we go forward with this, but I am still excited about these technologies. And then also in particular, augmented reality. I'm really excited, not just about the metaverse, but really about how our lives are mixing, the IRL, the like real life experiences and community and connections with tech-driven experiences, and how, I believe that's going to be integrated in all our lives. And so there was just, the new headset that came out. I'm sure there's going to be many, many future generations of what this technology looks like and how do you integrate in our lives that it's just as easy as now the phone that we all take everywhere. But I'm excited about that. It's also a little bit scary, right? What does that look like in terms of, our mental capacity and time and advertising to us? But I do think that's going to totally change our lives. So I am following augmented reality really closely. I think the other thing, and just speaking to some of my background in the impact and sustainable investing space, I think we need to rebrand and reimagine what people are calling ESG. I've never been a fan of that acronym, and I think it's definitely, it's been like it's like a bad word. It's been politicized, especially recently. But I think the real concept of what it is in terms of understanding and incorporating the data of how companies are treating people, are treating their stakeholders, is in addition to their profits, is more important than ever, and that's not going away. I mean, the large financial firms and banks and investors have already incorporated that into decision making. And so you can call it whatever you want, but it's not, some liberal charity. Like, this is actually the future of how we need to look at companies and investments in the long term, and getting more and more important, both from a world perspective. I mean, with all the things happening with the climate, but also, it's going to matter to our money and to our financial institutions and our investments. So super important, I think, to rebrand that. And then I'll end with, back to our topic of financial inclusion in fintech. I mean, continuing to move to more personalization. So as we get more and more tech in our lives, it's more and more important for people building these products and how we're using these products to really understand how people want to experience them, and like how do you really incorporate them in people's lives and make them feel more personal. And so, over the last couple decades, there was, in finance, it was like the human advisors. It was all just like physical and human. Then it was, oh no, we're moving all to technology and it's going to be robos and all just banking and everyone's just going to do everything digitally. To like, how do we actually mix humanity and technology together? And whether we're talking about new cities like Tolosa, whether we're talking about new fintechs and banking, or, CAFE, the new accelerator program, or really everything else, I think it's coming more to the intersection of humanity and tech, and then how do you have that personalization and focus on the humanity in people's lives first, what matters to people's lives first, and then build the technology to support that. So yeah, so really excited about this year and the future for all of us, for all of our daughters, and to keep making progress.
Like that. So there's no better way to end a conversation than with a positive note. God knows we all need that. So thank you so much for joining us, Kristen, and look forward to hear more about CAFE and all the other exciting projects that you have in the works.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you. We'll need to keep the conversation alive. And for the rest of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision. We will talk to you next week.